Hey guys, it's Meadow. Welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to be filming a story time video, and I know everyone was hoping for the high school drama story time video. I'm still working on the details of that because I'm really not trying to get hate on that, which I mean honestly I don't really care, but I just want to make sure I do it right. So I am working on that. But today I'm going to be doing a story time all about why I quit softball and dropped out of college. Okay, so like I mentioned, today's story time video is going to be the story of why I quit softball and dropped out of college, which sounds super huge and scary, which it totally was. But it's basically a really simple story, but I've had a lot of questions on it, and I usually post on Twitter or Instagram or whatever my Curious Cat link, which is a little website. It's kind of like the OG Ask FM, is that what it's called? Do you guys remember that in high school? I don't know, maybe I'm old, but there used to be this site. It wasn't even an app, was it? Or was it an app? Is it an app? I don't know. But there's this little website called Ask FM where you could go and be a fucking bitch and ask anonymous questions and just be an asshole. And that's kind of what Curious Cat is, I guess. I don't really use it very much unless I'm filming a video or super bored. But most of the questions are just not even worth answering. It's just people being haters. So I usually don't even answer most of them. But I get asked on there a lot about college and softball and stuff because a lot of people who follow me on social media do know me from high school, so that was a huge part of my life in high school. So that's why, basically moral of the story is that's why I wanted to make an actual video out of it, and I haven't answered any of those questions on Curious Cat. So I'm just gonna start with a little bit of a backstory. Basically, I'm sorry if I say this whole video, I'm so bad. Anyways, so basically the backstory is, I started playing softball, well, softball, not really, baseball, t-ball, all the, when I was 4 or 5 years old, I started t-ball, and ever since then, I never missed a season. I always, I played every season that there was. I played pretty much every summer, starting as soon as I possibly could, in Little League or whatever, competitive teams. I played, competitive travel teams during the summer, and when I got to high school, I made varsity as a freshman. I played all 4 years of high school, and my junior year, I made All-State, which is, I don't know if anyone, everyone's probably not familiar with what that means, but basically there's and in our conference at least, which I was in the A conference, and it's totally different in every state, which I live in Montana, and I was in Class A, so there was all conference, I think so it goes all conference, which is there's different conferences all around Montana in the Class A division, and there's honorable mention, A team, or first team and second team, and then there's All-State after that, and basically all the coaches in the Class A get together and they nominate players. And so anyways, moral of the story is junior year I was All-State, and I unofficially broke home run records at Park High, broke/set, because there first of all aren't really even any official records regarding softball that I know of, and Park High is kind of a big old piece of shit in that department, and I'm not even worried about saying that because it's true. I don't even remember the exact number of home runs that I hit, but my junior year was my big year, and that's why I made All-State that year. I hit a lot of home runs. I'm just bragging about myself. Anyways, point is, I was decent at softball. So anyways, my junior year, I was recruited by the University of Great Falls, which is in Montana, to play softball. I had other offers like out of state in California and North Dakota and pretty much all over, but I decided to go to Great Falls, and just so everyone knows, I get questions about this too. I didn't stay in Montana because of Johnny. We weren't even dating when I signed to play softball at in Great Falls, so just a little FYI, because I get so many questions, and like it's ridiculous how many people like talk shit about that. But no, Johnny and I didn't even know Johnny. Well, I knew him, but we hadn't even like met or officially started talking even remotely close to when I signed in UGF. But anyways, that's just a side story. So then I was recruited to play at UGF on a softball scholarship, an athletic scholarship, and I accepted that. And so once I graduated, I went to school at UGF and I started playing softball. They have a fall, their like regular season is in the spring, but in the fall they have a fall season. So my first day of school there, I had softball practice. I loved UGF. It was a really great school. The classes were small. It's a small school, it's a small private school, so it's very expensive, which thank God I got a scholarship. But the classes are super small and the teachers are really nice and they're understanding. UGF, I can't remember the percentage, but basically has a huge percentage of the students that play some sort of a sport or, you know, do an activity or something. So their teachers are, whatever, professors, I don't even know what you're supposed to call them, are very understanding of that, and they cater to that well. It was just a really great school, and by the way, I was going to school, my major was elementary education. Not that that matters, but I get questions on that as well. Anyways, yeah, I love the school, and that wasn't even the biggest part that I loved about being in Great Falls. Our coaches, our softball coaches, were amazing. I love those coaches. They were fun. They were, I don't know, anything that you want in a coach, they were, and it was really great. I loved my teammates. My teammates were awesome. I fit in really, really well with them. They knew how to party, and they were serious about softball and school at the same time, and that's what I was about. So I fit in right away with all of them. And I had an awesome roommate. At first, I didn't really even have a roommate. She ended up moving to a different dorm, like in the first week of school. But eventually, like a couple weeks into school, I moved in with my friend Michaela, who was also on the softball team. She was a freshman as well, and we quickly became best friends. I love her so much, and I still do to this day. She lives in California now, so we don't really get to see each other very much, but I still love her to death, no matter what, and she knows that. And I think she feels the same way. But yikes, I'm not trying to get emotional in this video. Anyways, so basically that's all the backstory, and I know that's like kind of long, and I don't know how much I'm going to be able to cut that down, but I just wanted you guys to know like a little of the backstory as to why this was such a big event that happened in my life. The big part of this story as to why I had to quit softball, and why I had to drop out of school essentially, was Michaela and I one day were just out. I think we went and got Starbucks, and I think we were just headed back to the dorm, or probably maybe going to Walmart or something. Like, there really is not much to do in Great Falls. And on our way back to the dorms, we were in a car accident. The car accident was pretty bad. It could have been worse, of course. It pretty much always can be worse if you survive. It pretty much can always be worse. But what happened was, and I'm going to kind of go into detail because I get so many like questions from just everyone, like including my family, friends, people online, about what actually happened in the car accident. So it was a four-way intersection. It was uncontrolled, meaning there were no stop signs or stop lights or anything. We were going west, and the car that hit us, or well, I guess technically we hit them, was going north, and so we had the right of way because we were to the right of them, whatever. I don't know exactly how to explain that. Basically, we had the right of way, and the car that we hit didn't slow down or yield to us, and we ended up T-boning them. We T-boned them. I've done this motion a million times now. We T-boned them and the car spun into the yard that would have been like the yard in the northwest corner of the intersection. That's where our car ended up. I don't even hardly remember what happened. I basically like blacked out. I only know like the details, obviously, because like the cops and Michaela told me what happened. All I remember is seeing like people came up to the car. I think there was people, I don't remember seeing this, but Michaela told me that there was some people sitting on their front porch just down the street, and they saw it happen, so they came up to the car, and they were the ones that called the police, I think. And it seriously seems like it happened so quickly, like that the cops and the ambulances came. I was in shock, so I like couldn't even move. I like physically couldn't move. I was fine. I didn't know that at the time, but I just like couldn't feel my body kind of thing, which is basically like I was in shock, like I said. Those are typical symptoms or whatever. And luckily both Michaela and I had our seatbelt on, which I seriously never get into a car without a seatbelt, and don't put my seatbelt on. I'm a huge like advocate for that. Don't get me started. But so yeah, because I was in shock and I couldn't really tell what had happened to me, I told them that I thought I hit my head on the my window, the passenger side window, and I kind of, as I started to like come to, don't think I lost consciousness, but I can't be for sure because I was in shock, so I don't really even remember the entire accident. I don't really even remember hitting the car, but I did tell them that I had neck pain and kind of some of that stuff, so they did end up putting me on a stretcher and taking me to the hospital in an ambulance. And then after that, all I remember is kind of being in the hospital, and they wouldn't let me sit up or anything because they had to do an MRI or a CT or whatever the hell it is when they have to like check your spine and your neck and all of that. And what I do remember, something that's super funny, is I had to pee really bad, but they hadn't been able to take me in for the MRI yet, so I couldn't stand up or sit up or anything, so I wasn't allowed to go to the bathroom, but I legit was going to piss my pants. So the nurse, I had to pee in a what is it called, bedpan, and as if peeing in a bedpan isn't embarrassing enough, I had to pee so bad that I overflowed the bedpan. So there's that. That's something that I do remember about being at the hospital. I really don't remember much else. I do remember that McCall, one of our really good friends, came to see us in the hospital. And I do remember that my parents came. See, okay, and here, to put it into perspective for how long I was in the hospital after the accident, my parents live in Livingston, and they were in Livingston, and Livingston is about 3.5, 4 hours from Great Falls. I could be off a little bit, but around there. And Johnny was in Billings, which is 4 hours away from Great Falls. And so I was still in the hospital when they both got to Great Falls. All of them got to see me in the hospital, but they all came to see me or make sure I was okay. Another thing was that I think is kind of not super important, but it really was horrible and scary for Johnny because he obviously, like, we text all day, on and off, whatever, but he hadn't heard from me in a while. I think he might have called me and I didn't answer, which is not super, he knew like I wasn't at practice or anything, so he was kind of like confused why I wasn't answering him, which wasn't typical of me. But I had shared my location. We like had shared our locations with each other. Just, I can't remember why, just because. So he looked on there and saw that I was at the hospital, which I can't even imagine, must be so scary. So he texted me and was like, why are you at the hospital? Why are you at the hospital? I finally was able to text him back and let him know that I'd been in an accident, and he came. And so after that, I was allowed to leave that night. I don't think we left the hospital till 1 or 2 in the morning, if I remember correctly. I had a neck brace. They didn't find anything like irregular. Did they do? No, I don't know if they did. I'm trying to remember. This has been over 3 years ago now. So we went home that night, back to the dorm. Johnny stayed with me. My parents got a hotel. Sometime the next day, Johnny and I went back to Billings. I went back to Billings with him because it was actually the beginning. The accidents happened on a Friday night, or Friday evening, afternoon, whatever. And then the week following was actually our fall break at UGF, so we didn't have school for that whole week. So I ended up going home with Johnny. I had planned on going to Billings anyway to see him, so it kind of worked out, but that he could just come to get me. So anyway, so we went back to Billings Saturday evening, I believe. And we just hung out at his house, at his parents' house, because he was still living with them at the time. And we were just kind of hanging out. I was feeling okay. I had a concussion, obviously, so I had headaches. And then Monday, I believe it was, I had a seizure. We were laying in bed, and again, I don't remember this. This is just from what Johnny and his mom told me. I had a seizure, or what they thought was a seizure, and Johnny called his mom downstairs and was freaking out, and she called 911. So they called 911, called an ambulance to the house, and I went to the hospital that night, the emergency room. When I was at the hospital in the emergency room, I started having another seizure, and they were able to stop it. They gave me medicine through my IV to stop it. I don't know what the medicine's called. You can look it up. It's probably just the typical medicine that they give to stop seizures, but they did that. My parents came to Billings to be with me, and they ended up keeping me overnight so that they could do more tests. I can't remember exactly. I think I ended up staying in the hospital for 3 nights. So I think 3 nights, and then the 4th day I got to go home. And while I was there, they did tests on my brain. They had to put these sticky things all over my head. They did a monitor on my heart, and all these tests came back basically not negative, but inconclusive. They didn't tell the doctors what was wrong with me at all. So I went home. They gave me anti-seizure medicine, which I did take. I took that for a while, and then after fall break was over, I went back to school. I wasn't allowed to play softball since I had a concussion. So basically, I wasn't even allowed to go to practice because of the risk of getting hit in the head again, and like the risk is a lot higher when you still have symptoms, obviously, all that jazz. So I wasn't even allowed to be at practice and risk getting hit in the head, let alone the fact that I couldn't even have the lights on, really. without having a raging headache. So I couldn't go to class. I wasn't allowed to go to class even if I wanted to. So I was falling behind in school really bad because not only was I not allowed to go to class, I wasn't even allowed to like do my schoolwork. I was allowed to do like 30 minutes of work a day, and that's just a freaking joke because I was taking 5 classes. I don't know how many credits that is, but I was taking 5 classes and I had homework in every class, let alone the actual classwork that I was missing for points. So I was falling way behind in school. I was going to my doctor's appointments and they were basically like, until you don't have symptoms, severe symptoms, you can't they can't change anything. Eventually my doctors were like, listen, I don't know, they didn't think that it was really a great idea for me to really ever play softball again. And just a little like kind of backstory to that part. In high school, I did suffer from a few concussions. I played 3 sports: volleyball, basketball, and softball. And I was a very aggressive athlete, to say the least. So I did suffer from a few concussions in high school, and a couple of them were pretty bad. But I always was able to fully recover and go back playing sports again. But my doctors this time said, and I did see neurologists, like specialists, everything. I saw everyone. They said that they didn't think it was a great idea to really play sports anymore, let alone play softball, because the risk of permanently damaging my brain was pretty high in their eyes, especially since after the concussion that I got in the car accident, I was having unexplainable symptoms that, I mean, they said pretty clearly were symptoms from the accident and the concussion, and the fact that I was having seizures, which seizures can do a lot of damage to your brain. They basically recommended that I don't play softball anymore. They didn't say you absolutely cannot play softball, but I had to make the decision whether risking a permanent brain injury I had to make the decision whether risking a permanent brain injury was worth playing college softball, which is why I wanted to give you the backstory of how my life, basically. I played softball my whole life, and it was a huge part of my life. And so the decision to stop playing softball was really hard. Not only because I love softball, but my parents and my family put in a lot of money and time. They put in a lot of money and time in order to give me those opportunities and give me the best opportunities to play softball and do what I love. And so I felt like me quitting softball wasn't just letting myself down, but I felt like I was letting my family down. And I know that's not true, but it's really hard not to think that way. And I know they understand why I did it, but it's still hard, obviously, to think about. So anyways, I did make the decision to basically quit the softball team. I talked to my coach and we talked about it, and she totally understood my reasoning. and she told me that if anything changed, of course she would welcome me back with my scholarship and everything, but obviously nothing changed. So not only did I have to quit the softball team, but I did end up dropping out of school. It didn't count as a dropout. It was a medical withdrawal, which basically it didn't impact any of my credits, or it was basically like a clean slate. Like it was basically like they just erased me going to college at all. And so when I started again later at MSUB, it was basically like I was a freshman again. So I did end up having to quit school, and I moved in with Johnny, and the rest is history. Now we have a baby together. So moral of the story is everything truly happens for a reason, and I am really starting to come to terms with that. It's still obviously really painful what happened, and I know that it kind of sounds like a first world problem sob story, but you know, when you spend your whole life doing something and working towards something, and you literally do everything you can, and you finally get the recognition and everything that you've deserved, and then you kind of get that just taken away from you, it's really hard. Now I'm still suffering from injuries. I don't know exactly what you would call it, from that car accident. I have pretty bad anxiety from the car accident, which I'm not going to go into it right now, but I also was diagnosed with PTSD after the car accident. Actually, I was diagnosed recently with PTSD as a result of the car accident. And so I'm going to do a separate video kind of talking about anxiety, depression, PTSD, all of that. So definitely give this video a thumbs up if you want to see that. I'm probably gonna film it either way, but okay guys, I think I got in everything that I wanted to talk about. So that's why I quit softball and dropped out of school. I hope this answers some questions that everyone has had. If you do have additional questions, don't hesitate to comment down in the comment section. I'm totally open. I'll either answer them down in the comment section, or, you know, on Twitter or anything. Speaking of Twitter, if you don't follow me there, you definitely should. That's where I give most of my updates. I also do a lot of updates on Instagram stories, or just Instagram in general. I also have a Snapchat. I don't usually post on there that much, but you can follow me on all of those, and those will be linked down below. I'm just gonna end this video by saying thank you so much for making it to the end of the video. I'm sure this is gonna be long. I already have 40 minutes of footage. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!